We're going to bring in Austin Armstrong, your defensive coordinator. They're basically ready to build a statue for you, Coach, off of 3 weeks.
Yeah, well, the thing I learned about this profession is very conditional, right? So
Right.
none of the stops that happened last week are guaranteed for next week. So
Yeah, you might be 12 days away from them all wanting to hang you. So enjoy it while you can.
that's right.
Uh,
That's right.
How do you feel about where your defense is right now?
Well, we've got a long way to go. I've certainly been pleased with the intangibles, the toughness, the effort, the physicality that we've played with, and the execution has to improve. They've done a good job. I can't commend our players for all the work that they've done since I got here in January, and their buy-in, their belief, and then obviously the uniqueness of your roster turnover. It changes. I mean, hopefully, obviously the new rule, but it changes every 6 months essentially, and the new additions, the job that our coaching staff has done. I can't compliment them and the players enough for the job they did, especially with adding, 4 to 5 new players in the spring portal window. So long way to go. Excited about this week. This isn't an off week. It's a bye week. So it's an opportunity. We're going to get 3 opportunities to improve our fundamentals, our techniques, and then schematically get prepared for Oregon State. So really excited about that. But commend the players for all their hard work and all the coaches for their execution of our plan. But we really feel like our best football is ahead of us.
We've talked a couple times about the way you installed your defense, starting when you got here through the spring and the summer. Can you kind of go through that and how piecing it together worked for you this time?
Yeah, so this is the third time I've been blessed with the opportunity to take over a situation as a defensive coordinator, and this is the second time of the 3 in which the staff was already there. Obviously we added Coach Hall after I was here when Coach Etheridge went to Miami, but the core of the staff was here, and they played really good defense here last year. So, getting here in January, we had 2 new coordinators, and, with NCAA rules, you're allowed to do a certain amount of stuff in February before you start spring practice, and then in the summer after you do spring practice. So, we came in due to our schedule, and, we essentially, put the identity of our defense on first and second down for the whole month of February before we started spring practice. And kind of with our meeting and lift and walkthrough schedule, we really just did 1 call a day for 4 days, and the players were off on Fridays. So we took that 1 call each day and really, really went into fine detail of how we did that, all the formation issues, all the things that arise there. Because if we can get it down close the first time and we do a good job of teaching, we know we're going to get an opportunity in the spring to do it again, an opportunity in the summer 1 to do it again, summer 2 to do it again, and then in fall camp to do it again. And then obviously the application of it in the season. So, going through that and then getting in the spring practice. And so if you're doing that 1 a day, you're doing 4 calls a week. All right. And you do that for 3 weeks or 4 weeks in February. And then you do it again in spring ball, and a little bit of combination of that, because there's an introduction and there's a preconceived knowledge of, hey, this is what we're doing, and go do that for 15 spring practices. And then you add the situational football of the conversion downs of 3rd down, low red zone, 2-minute, those situations. So you do that in the spring, and you come back in the summer and you do a similar deal in summer 1, and then summer 2, a similar deal when we get back. And then when we started fall camp for the first time, we essentially put 8 to 10 things in on first and second down. And that's what we did for all of fall camp. And we kind of, as a staff, figured out, hey, what are we good at? What are the things about being multiple? Sometimes people think being multiple is just having a lot of calls. Well, multiple is, and being good on defense, in my opinion, is the ability to make the same things look different things look the same. So offensive football now, you look at our offense as a great example, the multiplicity of the formation variables that you get. If you're doing a bunch of stuff and they're doing a bunch of stuff, the quality of football becomes terrible because all you're doing is getting lined up, and you got to survive for the 6 to 8 seconds between you getting a signal and getting lined up to play. Well, if you do that, you can't evaluate your talent. You can't, use the application of the fundamentals that you spend so much time working on from a 6 to 7 month year process from January all the way to fall camp and then in fall camp. And if, we can learn what to do by the way we've done it, we're able to play with effort and play with toughness and attack the football and play with fundamentals. So, I think it's paid off thus far of taking it slow whereas, when I got to Florida and transitioned from Alabama, I was taking over a very, very young team, very similar to what our defense is this year. And we just did too much. And we didn't do a lot in the season, but we wasted a lot of time in the summer and in the spring installing a lot of variables in the system. And we weren't able to get good at stuff. And then by the time we got to the season, and we improved drastically on defense there, but we wasted a bunch of reps for young players that we could have been mastering simpler things that we can do to allow them to play faster and develop as players.
Brad.
Through that, I guess coming off of that, one of the things that really stood out to me so far in what I've seen from this defense is guys really being disciplined within their roles, taking care of their task. How do you, especially with so much roster change, how do you integrate that, get them to not only understand their assignment, but trust the people around them so that they can focus on job one?
Well, to me, that starts with Willie Fritz. He is an outstanding football coach, and there's discipline and accountability in every aspect of our program. And when it starts from there, and his emphasis, is discipline, doing what you're supposed to do, playing with relentless effort, it really makes your job as a coach a lot easier because all you're doing is reinforcing, what the head coach wants, which is the number one responsibility of assistant, is to reinforce the values and principles of the head coach. So that has, when it starts with there, it makes your job easy. And then it starts with the coaches and, the job that they've done of teaching our system. And, we spend a tremendous amount of time because there's so much carryover with our plan of teaching what the offense does. That's what we do all week long. We teach the field zones, we teach the D&D tendencies, we teach the formation tendencies, the back tendencies. Well, if you're spending a bunch of time installing, all the player can think about is, this is what I got to do, and you only have 4 days to get ready to do that. Well, if you're doing a lot of the same stuff over and over again, and certainly you call certain things for certain teams, but when they're able to know what the other team is doing, they're able to play fast and free and use the ability that God gave them, which made them good football players. And it starts, like I said, it starts at the top, but then it's our staff of the zero tolerance of not doing what you're supposed to do. And a lot of times, man, no one wants to do better than the players. And these kids have a lot of pressure on them, and they want to make a play. They want to have production. They want to do X, Y, and Z because they work their tail off all year long for these opportunities. And our big thing is constantly play within the system. If you do your job, the play and the production is going to come to itself. And that's been the interesting thing each week is we've had certain guys that have had a lot of production based off the calls we're in and the position and their ability. But each game we've had a different player due to the game plan have a lot of production. And then we've had guys that may not, light up the stat sheet that played their tail off in the game because they did their job. And good defenses are always where they're supposed to be. They play with relentless effort and physicality, and they get to their fundamentals first. They can't get to their fundamentals first if they're not doing what they're supposed to do, and they're playing fast and free. And we spend a lot of time doing that, and it's exciting to see where we can go from there.
Yeah, it's been fantastic because I've seen a number of different plays that are made out there where a guy, instead of going for kind of glory hunting for a tackle, they just did their job, and that opened it up for somebody else to make a play. So that's been impressive. One of the other guys, that stands out that I find his background fascinating is Eddie Walls. You guys brought him in what, December? Is that right? Whenever you got here?
No, sir. He got here in the spring. He got here at spring practice.
Even crazier. So how did he get here? What did you see in him? Because he looks great.
Yeah, first off, Eddie's a fantastic human, and he's a great person. He's got great character. His family obviously did a fantastic job with him. And, our field end position, what we call the F, is extremely important in our defense. As a defense that goes from 3 down to 4 down, that guy plays inside techniques, outside techniques. He drops in coverage in certain situations. And then he also needs to be 6'4" to 6'6" and weigh 260, 270 pounds. And behind him, we've got some really, really good young players that are stepping up for us as well. And Travis Buhaki and Sterling and Darius Washington and DK Mays. And really all those guys fit a lot of those characteristics. But, Eddie was at FIU and got in the portal, and we needed to add a player there. Because we kind of have a unique player that's kind of banged up right now for us in Q Lee that can play inside and outside. That's, 6'4", 6'5", 300 pounds. But we needed to add a player at that position that has played. We knew we have some good young talent. James Ross has done an outstanding job at that position, coaching the Jacks and the F, our edge coach. And, Eddie played at Bethune-Cookman and then went to FIU, and we had something like 5 or 7 sacks playing a similar defense that we played. And, that's one thing that pops off is, hey, we're adding this guy post-spring, and, he's not going to get as much time of learning what to do. He's got to have good character. He was actually coming off a minor knee injury, so there were some questions there. But, Wes and James found the guy, and we were looking for him, and then I evaluated him, and man, we started recruiting him, and he came on his visit. Man, he's unbelievably impressive as a person. And then obviously the position characteristics of the height, weight, speed, and then the tape was really good. And man, he has been a blessing to have in our program, and we're able to do some stuff with him. He moves well, he plays technique well, and I think Eddie's best football is ahead of him. And like I said, I can't commend the job that James has done with him in a short period of time. And I can't commend the job that the kid has done and the buy-in. I mean, he was a captain for the second game of the season. The impact he's made on our team since he's been here. And I'm ecstatic about his improvement that he can make and he will make, and for the good football that he can play for us down the stretch.
Right.
I want to ask you about a couple linebackers. Before the season started, you told me, watch out for Jalen Garner. What has that guy done? How has he improved since you first saw him?
Yeah, so, Jalen and I kind of go back a little bit. When I was at Louisiana Lafayette as a linebackers coach during the 2020 season, it was a unique recruiting year for everybody because no one went on the road. And especially in group of 5, linebacker is a developmental position, and you really are recruiting players a lot of times that don't play inside linebacker, but fit the height, weight, speed characteristics that in a lot of high school programs, the best inside backer for college, a lot of times he plays in the apex, like the star position, or he plays on the edge because in that level of football, they can affect the game more. And you have to kind of get them to camp and figure out, can they kick, diagnose, and then what's their exactly height, weight, speed, and then what's their mental acuity of, hey, can this guy process? He's a good communicator, and all those things. And I actually recruited Jalen out of high school and ended up coming here. So when I took the job, one of the very first text messages I got after it kind of became public knowledge was from Jalen Garner. He said, Coach, when are you going to be here? I want to meet with you. And my first day here, Jalen came and met with me in my office and was like, hey, Coach, I'm excited. It's crazy how things turn out. I can't wait to get to work. I'm going to prove to everybody that I'm a good player. And look, every player you meet with when you get here tells you all the things that they're going to do. And from the time that I got here in December to now, it's hard to find a player that has worked as hard as Jalen. And then you go through the off-season program and you start spring practice and like, hey, this guy's got good movement skills. He's very intelligent. He's a good communicator. And the guy really hadn't played here. He played special teams. He'd kind of come in and out of games. And I'm sitting here watching the guy and I'm asking him, I'm like, guys, like, why didn't this guy play? Like, where's the ward? Where's the ward at? Am I missing something? Is this guy crazy? Like, is he have injury history? Like, there's something wrong here, because Jalen is still and was very similar to a lot of guys I just got done coaching when I was at Florida. I'm like, this guy has got play strength. He can run. He's loose hipped. He has stopping power. He has end of the down block protection power. He has rush value on third down. And honestly, man, like I was confused that I was missing something, because a lot of times if things are too good to be true, they are. And the guy has a good spring. We get about practice 6, and then he tears his pec. And, I'm like, wow, this is going to set him back. And then what an unbelievable job by Jalen from a physical, mental, spiritual standpoint, and our training staff to get the guy back. I mean, we held him out a little bit of the first part of training camp, but the guy probably could have practiced. And he worked his tail off. And it's so hard when players go through injuries of keeping them mentally engaged the entire time. And Jalen, every day I was having a text message from Jalen. Hey, coach, what happened on this play? This guy wasn't even in the game. Hey, what happened right here? What do I need to do here? And he did an outstanding job of preparing to play. And then we get him back, and he has a good fall camp. And he's just been as good of a player on our team the first 3 games. And he's very smart. He can run and hit. He can get the guy to the ground. He plays with the energy and passion and intensity that I think the game's supposed to be played with. And he's been outstanding so far. And he's hungry. He wants to prove himself. I mean, the guy in the game, though, they played will linebacker. He played both edge spots on third down in the game in critical downs and had 1 MA the entire game. And he's been a blessing to coach. He makes me better as a coach. He's very curious. He asks questions. He's not intimidated to ask questions. He wants to be a really, really good player. And it's been a privilege to coach him. And, man, I'm so excited for him and the production that he's had and the team success we've had. And I'm really excited to see his development the rest of the season.
The one I wanted to ask you about most is Corey Platt. He has the best story maybe in college football, and he's gone out and had a sack for you each of the last 2 games. What is your experience with him, and take me through coaching him as a defensive coordinator?
Yeah, another guy, right? He's from Little Rock Christian, I believe. And when I was at Lafayette, Corey played safety in high school, essentially. And ended up going to Tulane. I remember the name. Then when I got here, Coach Fritz and Wes were like, hey, look, this guy got hurt last year. He came with us from Tulane. He was really impressive for us there. He's almost healthy. We're going to minimize him a little bit in spring practice, but this guy's a really, really good player. And, I come in and try to meet with every defensive player, and I meet with him. And, his story is like something out of a Disney movie. And, what a job by his parents. What a job for him from a mental, physical, and spiritual standpoint to have the perseverance to push through, not like just some normal injury, but, I haven't coached many players that have tore their Achilles ever. Yeah. And the ability to come out, what are the chances of doing that? And then the perseverance and the mental toughness to push through that. And I admire him so much. And I've told him that. I said, man, like a lot of guys would have hung it up, and everybody would have been okay with that. And, it's been a cool deal with Corey, because during the practice settings, because he doesn't play much special teams for us, and he was kind of coming, he was not all the way in practice some, but he was able to do certain stuff. He and I are able to spend a lot of time with each other. And it's been really cool to see that. And then, the first game of the season, we had a scrimmage, and he was a little beat up, nothing major, but the conversation that Coach Fritz and I had with him was, we want you to play when you're 100%. You haven't played in 2 years. It's going to be a lot of stress on you. It's going to be emotional for you. we want you to be at your best, and the maturity for him to understand that, and to go out against Rice and to have a 4th down stop at the end of the game. He also had I think 3 or 4 tackles.
Yeah.
And then to come in last week, I think he played 25 plays, which is a pretty good amount, and played pretty good for us. He can run. He's loose hipped. We're going to continue to develop him with his weight and block protection. But, I think that, justice doesn't always get rewarded. It doesn't always work out. But it comes close to always working out. And, for him to have that concrete example, to have 2 really big plays in 2 games, I know that means a lot to him. And it meant a lot to our team. When he made that sack against Rice, you would have thought that, we had a pick 6. And, because everyone just saw him work, and everybody goes through something like that. It may not be the exact situation, but people go through hard times, and, people watch you the most when you are going through your hard times. And how do you act? How do you treat people when things are unfair? And he's been unbelievable. And, I'm so happy for him and the success he's had. I'm excited for his development. This is a big week for him during the off week, the bye week, where he can improve his game and continue to work to contribute to our team. And he's a joy to coach, man, and he makes me a better coach and a better person.
Brett?
Are there any surprises so far as players? Anybody that stands out that you weren't sure about once the lights came on?
Yeah, until you get out there in the game, there's always small surprises, but we try to create, and Coach Fritz does an outstanding job. We try to create a practice environment where a lot of those questions get answered. Some guys get out there under the lights and they lose their mind a little bit, and their focus, their fundamentals, their execution. Because like I said, I tell the players all the time, no one wants to be more successful than you. And sometimes that anxiety and pressure affects people. So we as coaches have to create a practice environment that's extremely stressful, confrontational, challenging, to get a lot of those questions answered. So I think, I heard Sean McVay say one time, the biggest mistake we make as coaches are the lies that we tell ourselves. And we're like, oh, this will be fine, or, this is going to be okay. Well, if you don't create an environment in which you have to see them in stressful situations in which they have to perform at a high level, and you don't create those situations, you're going to start lying to yourself and say, hey, it's going to work. So our staff has done an outstanding job from the top down with Coach Fritz of creating those situations. So we have a pretty good idea going out there, and some guys step up and some guys fall short. But I think it starts in the practice environment, and we get a lot of those questions answered because they play how they practice.
Right. And
that's where we got to continue to develop as a unit of last week we played pretty good, but we practiced pretty good. But our expectations aren't to play pretty good. We want to play elite. We want to play great. So we have to have an elite and great practice environment.
So we've got
go ahead,
Brett.
Brett.
Austin coming up, and we've got a lot of momentum going into that. How do you handle off weeks so that you maintain that momentum and come out firing on all cylinders on the backside of it?
Well, none of the successes or failures that we had the first 3 weeks of the season are going to carry into the bye week. Right. It's a fresh start. I believe, kind of like Coach Fritz, that you create your own momentum. I think it's, every game is full of momentum. Every practice is full of momentum. Like, that's life. Like, there's going to be the inevitable ups and downs and adversity and successes of a game. But our thing going into this bye week is it's a bye week, not an off week. We just don't play a game Saturday. And we have 3 opportunities to improve, and we have to improve fundamentally with tackling, ball disruption, and block disruption and conditioning, where we can go play at a high level. And that's our focus this week, on top of working on Oregon State some. And that's all we're worried about. We're not worried about the future or the past. We're worried about making this the best 3 days from on the field work that we can have, the best 4 days of meetings, the best 2 workouts that we have in the weight room. we can continue to improve. And none of the successes or failures of the first 3 weeks are going to have anything to do with our future success.
Awesome.
Last question. I want to ask about your tablet use in games. I find this so interesting. After a series, you and the other coaches will huddle together to talk through this. What are you looking for, or how are you using those tablets? What's the best way to do that?
Yeah, it's changed so much, even like how you organize your coaches during the game. A lot of times you would put 1 to 2 full-time coaches up there, position coaches, kind of be your eye in the sky to communicate with you what's going on. But now, due to that, all our full-time guys are on the field because they're able to interact with their players. We have 2 great guys in the press box, and Pete Brown and Will Weaver, that communicate the down and distance field zone personnel and other information to me and the coaches on the field. But at the end of every drive, success or failure, we're going to huddle up as coaches and review the drive, because a lot of it, honestly, is the vibe of the players. I know that kind of sounds kind of corny, but when you're playing really well, when you go over there and you overdo it, you can mess them up. And, every time there's a failure, there doesn't have to be a win-win for the Gipper speech to the whole defense. Here's what happened. Here's what we have to do. Here's why what didn't work well. And we watch and evaluate every play that we can. People think you have all this time over there. You don't have a whole lot of time. So we have to hit the key plays that are going on, the mistakes, and not only just the mistakes that may lead to a negative situation, but the mistakes that could lead to a negative situation. Because every play, just because we have success as a defense doesn't mean that we did what we were supposed to do. And just because they have a good play doesn't mean that we didn't do what we were supposed to do. So it's communicating that. It's us having some poise as coaches and going over there and being as technical and tactical as possible with the players in between drives. Because like I said, no one wants to do better than them. No one's more emotional than them. So we have to kind of rein them in a little bit, fix the mistakes, communicate what's going on next, anticipate what's going on next due to the situation, the field zone, the time, and go through it with the players. What's interesting is, now because you have the tablets, like when you call the game as the coordinator and then watch it on the tablet, by the time the game's over, what happened already, which is different than it used to be. You were guessing. A lot of times you were dealing with the communication skills of your players and the honesty of your players. Because, every time they would gain 10 yards, every D lineman got double teamed, right? Like that doesn't happen anymore. You're able to communicate and handle the situations a little bit faster than usual.
Awesome. Coach, we appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us tonight. And good luck this week in the bye week. I've been calling it the off week, but I'll go with bye week.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you guys for everything you do for our team, and we're excited about getting better this week and moving forward. And thank you to everybody that came to the game the other night and made it a special venue for our players who worked so hard. And thank you guys for all you do for our team.
Great. That's Austin Armstrong.
Right. Thank you guys.
That was pretty good.